Welcome to Pivot Point, Strategy for Change. I'm Nik Michael. I've spent over 30 years as a clinician and therapist, plus decades in business, investing, and entrepreneurship. This podcast sits at the intersection of psychology and strategy, exploring that precise moment when staying the same is no longer viable, when a decision, forced or chosen, changes the trajectory of everything. Some people are propelled by crisis, others pivot quietly, recognizing misalignment before catastrophe strikes. But all share one thing: the internal conflict, resistance, fear, and courage required to choose differently. That moment, that's the pivot point. And understanding it is the strategy for lasting change. Today's guest, Steven Rodriguez, knows that moment intimately. He's the founder of Elevate Business. But this isn't just a story about entrepreneurship. It's about what happens when life strips away your work, your security, even your sense of control, and you're left staring at what remains. In 2017, Steven's world came undone. He had significant losses in his life. Some include the loss of his grandmother. He and his wife lost a baby. Hurricane Harvey tore through his business in Rockport, Texas. A trusted partnership dissolved in what felt like an instant. The momentum vanished, and the future was nothing but uncertainty. Then came the moment that changed everything. Standing in his office, staring at an empty desk where his computer had been stolen. His entire work, his progress, gone. Steven made a decision. He would not break. Instead, he will rebuild. That decision became his pivot point. In this episode, we talk about what it really means to stand in the wreckage and choose resilience, how grief can coexist with growth, and how discomfort, when embraced fully, can become one of life's most powerful teachers. Steven shares his 5 rules that he lives by today, his principles that he forged in hardship that have become the blueprint for helping others rise beyond their own setbacks. If you've ever found yourself at that edge, tired, uncertain, wondering if there's enough left in you to keep going, this conversation is for you. Because pivot points don't wait for the right timing. They arrive when we are tested, and how we respond defines everything that follows. This is Pivot Point, Strategy for Change. Let's begin. Steven, first, thank you for coming. I appreciate spending the time with you. Really looking forward to it. Take me back to that moment, standing in your office, staring at that empty desk. Everything that you built was either gone or falling apart. What was actually going through your mind in that moment? Not the decision you made after, but that raw experience of being in it. What did that feel like?
Well, let me set up some context for you.
Sure, thank you.
Basically, so this is December of 2017. And actually it came up on the anniversary of this not too long ago. Probably about a week ago, actually, now that I think about it. I think it was December 12th, 2017, if I remember correctly. Got it written down somewhere. Anyway, my wife and my kids, we had all gone out just to go have some fun. We were looking at Christmas lights and things like that. And it was just kind of a nice night, right? It was just a nice night, nice and cool. You know, my kids were really small at the time, and we were just enjoying ourselves. And in context, that had been a much harder year. Like, it had been a difficult year because of everything you had mentioned beforehand. And so we were just kind of like, okay, let's just get through the year. Let's just start with something fresh, something new. Like, okay, New Year's coming, we'll be all right. Well, we get home and we drive up and my front door is wide open. And I look at my wife, I'm like, did you lock the door? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, what happened? Right. So I walk up to, I get on the porch and I walk up, and the door frame is split where somebody has kicked in the door. Okay. And of course, immediately I'm thinking, okay, are they still in the house? Is something going like what's going on here? Well, my neighbor happens to be well, he was a police officer at the time, so my wife beelines it for his house to try and see like, hey, we need help, right? So she beelines it for his house. I call law enforcement and I look around for something to defend myself with. Just kind of there in my car in my yard. Just I'm like, I need to figure out what to do because if somebody is in my home and I have my wife, I have my kids are small, this is not a good situation. This is not a safe situation. Right. And so I go in and I kind of scan the house, look around. And as I'm walking in, my TV is ripped off the wall because we had a mount on there. I have a heater that's missing. And I walk over to my bedroom. The drawers have been ransacked and bathroom's open. Just everything's a mess. And I walk into my office and my laptop is gone. And that sets the stage for your question. Like I'm standing there, my laptop is gone, and I'm just looking and I'm like, oh my goodness. Like it's just gone.
Mm.
And I just stood there in shock at what had happened. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't want to touch anything. I need to walk out because I don't want, contaminate a crime scene, for example. Right. And so
Yes.
my neighbor comes in, he looks around, sheriff's office shows up. They go in, they clear the house, make sure nobody's there. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think they went in first, or did I go in first? No, I went in first. And then he went in just in case to clear again. And in hindsight, I probably should have waited till he got there, but I was just thinking, protect my family, right? So it was just in that moment, it was just this intense despair, just an intense despair, an intensity of like, oh my gosh, like now what? That was actually the moment, believe it or not. So all this happened in a matter of seconds. I'm staring at this empty desk, and then I just said, if they thought that this was going to get me to
Mm.
stop,
Hmm.
if they thought this was going to get me to quit, no, I'm getting up. Rule number
That
one,
was it.
get back up no matter what.
That's your number one.
That's rule number one.
Do you want to go over some of the rules that you've
Yeah, yeah. Well,
and
let me give some
and also
context as to
go
how
ahead,
they
go
kind
ahead.
of.
And also, I'm
Yeah.
curious for the listeners, how many of those rules did you internalize or realize later that you did at that moment?
The first
I
three.
think the first three, right? That's what I
The
thought.
first three. Yeah.
You
So
mentioned
it's the
that.
first three. So it's interesting because that was there's more context to that, but that was rule number one. Rule number one was get back up no matter what. That was the moment where that was like, I'm going to get up. I will rise from this. I don't know how else I'm going to do it. I have no idea how I'm getting to the laptop. I have no idea how I'm going to do anything. And the insurance had already replaced my camera equipment, which was stolen again from Hurricane Harvey. There's a lot of stuff that happened there too. And so that was stolen. I had to get a police report, get my insurance to cover that. And then the new equipment that I bought was then stolen in this subsequent burglary. And so I'm like, I don't know if they're going to replace it again. I don't know if my insurance is going to cover. I don't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen. Right. And I had a friend of mine that came over and he had been with us. I've known him, golly, since 2008, something like that. And so he's been a friend for a long time, still is a really good friend. JB, this is for you because JB, you know who you are. I don't mind saying his name. Uh, what he did was he came over. He's like, man, why does this stuff keep happening to you? And I told him, I said, I don't know. I said, what I do know is I do know that God has a purpose and a plan, and not that this was planned in the sense of like cruelty or anything like that, but bad things are going to happen. And no matter who you are, you're a good person, you're a bad person, bad things are going to happen. You're a good person, you're a bad person, good things are going to happen. That's called life.
Mm.
And I don't think it's in the purview of the Almighty to try and make human lives miserable because we have free will, we have choice, we have whatever it is that we decide to do. And it is through our free will and choice that we can make good decisions, bad decisions, etc. Right?
Hmm.
And whoever broke into my home made a bad decision, and it affected other people immediately. But that's when he comes over. We go to Walmart, go to local Walmart, and I'm like, I don't know what to do because my door's split open and I don't know how I'm going to secure my home. Well, I had this giant toolbox that was sitting in my living room.
Hmm.
I was a piano tuner at the time. And so I had this big toolbox and I pushed the toolbox against the door. I wedged like a sofa against that because there's no other way to do this. Right. And of course, I did not sleep well that night.
Mm.
I was hyper vigilant because I'm like, is someone going to come back? Are they going to try and push in the door? Like,
Right.
what's going to happen?
Right.
But right after he and I went to Walmart, And I came back home and he's helping me just kind of clean up a little bit and just kind of get stuff in place and put the toolbox and everything in there. I realized that as I'm staring at the pieces of the door lying there on the floor, the split wood, and how it's these really sharp, pointy shards that remind me of like the shards of my life in that
Mm,
moment. Okay. I realized that I could have peace in the pieces.
that's the second one.
That's rule number two.
Number two.
Find peace in the pieces.
So there is your, I was curious. I understand the piece. I was wondering what the pieces were.
When peace, Peace,
Yeah. Peace. And then the
when
pieces
everything is shattered
everywhere
around
was
you.
shattered around you. That's pretty profound.
Find peace in
Yeah.
the pieces
Yeah.
because there will be pieces.
Yes.
You can still find peace in the middle of it. You can still decide. I have my faith, not shy about it. It's not something I like shove down people's throats, but it has kept me going. I have my relationship with Christ. And what I can say about that is that that moment for me was very much a find peace in the pieces moment as well, because I realized that my peace can't just come from me. And for some people, if they can do that, that's great. I'm no judgment on my part by no means. And I'm glad that people can find peace other ways. Call me weak, call me soft, call me whatever you want, because I have to rely on my faith to do that. I'm not saying you do, but some people would argue that, right?
Yeah. Understood.
But I have learned that when things shatter, not
Right.
if they do, when they do.
When the expectation is probably, yeah. Nice.
The inconveniences and finding peace in the pieces lets things like that happen. Call it energy, call it whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
when you get out of that alignment, then it attracts more of the exact same turmoil
Yes.
that you're trying to avoid in your worry and in your anger and in your
Well put.
fear. But by releasing that, you give an opportunity for God to show up in ways that you didn't expect or to do things. And then that's where rule number 3 came in. Because in the subsequent days, and my wife and I think, I want to say we were on welfare at the time as well, because things had just been going super horrible. Couldn't afford food, stuff like that. And rule number 3 is expand or die. Now, here's the thing about expansion. See, if people look at expansion, most people think of expansion as a thing about increasing territory, reputation, status, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Going out there and like, hey, let me expand my business empire, or we die on the spears of our competition, for example. Okay? That's not what expand or die means in this context. Expand or die means expand who you are internally so you don't die the death of an existence. So you can live and not just exist. Expand who you are or live in a living death. And
So
that's where I decided not to
No,
state.
that's fascinating.
Yeah, go ahead.
So how did that become a core principle as compared to, it seemed like it was a real survival instinct that became your core principle?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You have to do more than just survive.
Yes, yeah. You want to thrive.
You want to thrive.
You
but
wanna thrive, yeah.
Thriving is a choice.
It is a choice. It's a yes.
Most people believe that when it comes to thriving, that thriving is contingent upon your external circumstances. And to thrive is not contingent upon that. I have friends of mine that are multimillionaires and friends of mine that are multi-thousandaires. Okay. And those that honestly can't afford food on the table that night and they're not sure what they're going to do. And I know people on all sides of the demographic spectrum. And what's interesting is what everyone has in common is if they have not surrendered the internal parts of themselves to truth, life, God, doesn't matter what it is. Some of them just live in more gilded cages than the others.
My next question was going to be, what did you have to let go? What did you have to let go of about yourself in order to live by these rules?
I'm not certain if it's so much about letting go
Whatever
and
the
just
opposite
more
might be,
about,
yeah.
or just more.
Surrender. Okay.
The thing is, surrender is a form of letting go,
Accept,
but
surrender or accept. I'm not sure if the feeling can be the same. The terminology could be different sometimes.
yeah. So it's
what's
like,
the feeling that you had to let go of? See, when we go back to the core feeling, we'll get to, when we go to the core feeling, we can describe.
okay, here we go.
It's those cognitive judgments that people the semantics that people get caught up with. So go ahead.
I think the feeling that you have to let go of is certainty. You have to embrace the certainty of uncertainty.
Yes, that's it.
And to give another example, one of my mentors, his name's Nik Peterson. That's actually one of his things. It's embrace the certainty of uncertainty. And if you can embrace the certainty of uncertainty, then you kind of get comfortable in whatever happens.
It's like with the level of acceptance. I don't know if that's another similar embrace or accept. Tell me,
Well,
because
see,
with
I guess
ACT and
yeah, I guess that's the thing about acceptance is that some people just resign themselves to their fate and just say, I accept whatever comes.
right.
And it's a very
No,
fatalistic.
yes. No.
You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a very fatalistic, like, okay,
Yes.
just whatever happens, happens.
Whatever
and
happens,
just,
happens.
just
Shit
whatever.
happens kind of thing. Right. But go ahead.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
This is a different kind of acceptance. This is an acceptance not from darkness, but from love.
Right. Okay. Well, that's the emotion back.
There you
Okay.
go.
So
Yeah.
this is what I search for in the stories. This is what I know listeners are listening for. So for someone who's listening, who feels stuck in a long year, you referred to it as a long year of their own, how can they tell if they're at their own pivot point, even if nothing dramatic has happened yet? Like what, if you go back to the emotion or perhaps the cognitive response you had?
Let's look at the juxtaposition of two separate things in 12.
Mm-hmm.
So I've actually, I mentioned 2017, but I've had a very storied story, right? 2012, I had a life shattering situation then as well. 2017 was by far the worst. But 2012, just to kind of go, and I won't go into all the details of it right now, just for time's sake. But long story short, my core beliefs, my core view of life, my worldview was very much shaken up, and to the point where at the time, I had suicidal ideation. I don't anymore, thank God. Been many years, and I have a very much a zest and a love and a zeal for life now. But what's interesting is during that time, there was a desire for self harm that I had, and yet I got through that and realized that, you know what, it's not something that I have to do, and I fell in love with life, and there you go. Teen was that moment where, you know, I lost my grandma, lost her friend within a week, like within 3 days of each other, both to cancer. Okay.
Sorry.
So that was January. That was like welcome to 2017. Right. So did a funeral and a memorial service. Within days of each other. Facebook nuked my ad account for a business that I really thought was going to do very well. And it was in the health space, and nothing against Facebook. They have to protect their interests, whatever they're going to do. And for whatever reason, I was deemed as something that was potentially, I was potential liability, I guess, that I'm trying to say. And so looking at that, it was like, okay, so that's like, okay, what are we going to do? And then now my piano tuning business isn't doing so well. And then June comes along, and then our son situation happened, and like just a lot, right? And you'd think that that would have been the year that somebody would say, well, why wasn't that the year that one would not want to self-harm? Like you'd think that, oh, like life is not worth living. But what's interesting is that in the middle of the pain, there are so many gifts. And people don't realize that there are actually gifts in the pain. See, I think a pivot point there is that if somebody feels like, well, there's nothing that I can do to transform my immediate circumstance. I am a slave to my circumstance. I'm a slave to my situation. I'm just stuck. There's nothing for me to do. There's no way out for me. There is a way out here in your soul. And I don't mean a way out in the sense of like, hey, let me jump planet, like get off the planet kind of thing. No. On the contrary, the way out is the way through. But the way through to say, God, where are the gifts that you're trying to bring to me in the middle of these circumstances?
So
and that's more of a decision that one has to make.
Conscious. That's the point. Yes.
It's a decision that you have to make
at that moment. But that comes from where. So if you could go back to that pivotal moment in 2017 and whisper one sentence into your own ear to help you then, what would it be?
Keep going. Things are going to look very interesting for you in the next decade.
So looking back now, that decision, major change from that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That entire year led to incredible opportunities. I mean, so like in June, for example, I was putting gas in my wife's car. I was at a gas station. It's probably 9:30 at night, something like that. She's at her parents'. She would cry every Thursday in mourning just for everything that had happened. I pull the seatbelt to buckle up and I get stung by a bee on my wrist right here. It's nighttime. There aren't supposed to be any bees out.
Mm,
Okay.
mm.
And I remember I felt it, pulled the stinger out, threw it on the on the ground, and I yelled. I said, "Come on, God, throw me a bone." I was so angry and I was so hurt and I was just so frustrated with everything that had been happening. It was in that moment that when I pulled that stinger out, then I got a call from the business partner that became the business partner. He's like, "Hey, I just saw a commercial that you did for a roofing company, and I really feel like you could come up here to Rockport and help us out, and that maybe we could do something really cool with marketing." And I thought, bone, right? Like, wow, it was literally
Yes.
like 30 minutes later, 30 minutes to an hour later. And then from there, okay, this is where it gets interesting. Like people think that the opportunity will present itself immediately and it doesn't. You may get an opportunity and that opportunity may be the worst thing to ever happen to you right after the worst thing that ever happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, losing our baby was the worst thing that's ever happened to me, but that one was a close second.
Mm.
Okay. With what happened there, I would say second or third around there. It was tied for 2012. And what's funny is like that's when it was like, all right, let's go. It was like June, July. It was July, I think. And then August comes around, then Hurricane Harvey goes through town, and I'm like, great. There were gifts in the pain. And what was really, and then one would think, okay, well, then where's the gift, Stephen? Like, where are the gifts in this?
Mm.
Resiliency comes from being forged in flame. And the only way you are going to become resilient for the dreams and the goals that you have set out for yourself and the things that you want to accomplish and the calling that you feel on your life, the only way to do that, the only way to accomplish that is to be forged in the flames of everyday pain. So you can gain the resiliency that you need in order to match the level that you're going to have to output at later. People don't understand that. And I understand why they don't understand it. It makes sense. Humans seek out two things. We seek out safety, we seek out comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And everything we do is around safety and comfort, safety and comfort, safety and comfort. And the thing is that what we have to do is we have to learn to embrace the uncertainty and understand that not everything is safe and comfort can kill. It can kill ambition. So let's fast forward to now.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the choices that have been made were not physical choices that happened in my external world. These are all
Right.
internal choices.
Right. Right. That's a
Okay.
good distinction to make. Yes. Go ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what wound up happening
Because
was
the
that
outside is different than the inside. So go ahead.
correct.
Yeah.
So here's what's really funny. That led to my business later on exploding in a good way. It expanded very rapidly. Then I went and spoke at a conference in Nashville for a bunch of business owners back in 2020, October 2020. That's what it was. And then from there, met this woman who's like, "Hey, I want you to introduce you to a friend of mine in Toronto, Canada." Great. So it got introduced to that friend. How you doing? Became friends, started doing work for her. And she's like, "I want to introduce you to someone who's a friend of mine in Florida." Great. So met another attorney in Florida. That guy, he and I became really good friends. I wore a Star Wars
Mm.
Baby Yoda shirt, and he told me, look, he said the only reason why I decided to like even do any kind of business with you is because you came as yourself. You didn't show up and try to look fancy. You came as you, and I appreciated that. So yes, I'm working with this guy. Here's what happened there. He introduced me to some friends of his. We all became business partners. And we have some cool projects that I actually can't talk about because they're
So
kind of top secret, but it's
that's great to hear
yeah,
that. That's a side piece. I understood. Being yourself is what made major changes occur that you didn't expect. So do you see this pivot as something life forced on you or something you consciously chose in the middle of the chaos?
I
Thinking about the pivot. Yeah.
felt the pivot was an opportunity
Right.
presented in the middle of the forge, right in the center of the crucible. You decide if you live or die. No one else. You decide if you're going to allow the crucible to refine you or to obliterate you. You have the opportunity to choose. And here's the thing, it is not an easy choice.
Mm-hmm.
It is a difficult, arduous, heavy, horrible, terrifying, mind numbing.
Mm.
Name every negative adjective you can probably come up with. And it is that. But if you choose not to go through it, which everyone has a choice, it's free will.
Yes.
If you choose not to go through it, you will miss out on the gifts that happen afterward. Because
So
then
you
it gives you a tender it gives you a tender heart but a tough hide.
you mentioned and you've talked about discomfort and choosing the discomfort. What did the discomfort look like in real daily terms? What was happening? If that's a place you want to go.
Yeah, totally, totally. The reason I sigh is because like I'm flooded with examples. I'm like, where do I
Sure.
start? And how do I
No,
like
that just go
yeah,
with what
yeah,
is in the foreground for you.
where do you start and how do you pick from it? Okay, so um can you ask me the question again?
Well, you talk about choosing discomfort. What did discomfort look like in real daily terms, whatever comes to the foreground as compared to the background or
Yeah. When you have people in your life
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
that are well meaning, friends, family, loved ones that see your suffering and all they think about is, I don't want you in pain. So when you're trying to grow and you're trying to expand yourself, and they come at you and they're like, why are you doing that? You're in pain. We can see that you're miserable. We can see that you're struggling. Why don't you just stop this struggle? Why don't you quit? Why don't you do something else? The problem is that we have this idea in society, especially in Western thought, that pain is harm. Pain is not harm. Pain is pain. Pain can indicate harm, but pain in and of itself is not harmful. For example, if you cut your arm and the doctor has to stitch you up and there is no local anesthetic. And even if there was, okay, so you get a local anesthetic. I used to work in a clinic, so, I see stuff, right? So, okay, so you get stitched up, local anesthetics there, it wears off. What happens? You're in pain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could argue, I'm in so much pain. The doctor hurt me. No, the doctor stitched you up so you wouldn't get sepsis, okay?
It's perception back to
It is
yes.
perception.
Okay. I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is
And
perception.
but that's my concern for many, how difficult it is for some to navigate and engage in a thought, change their thought, or change their feeling to change their behavior. And at times it becomes a difficult task for some, while others, but then something about stress or an event or trauma or something where you're being challenged, right? Then the mind, the body, your emotions, your spirit, it finds a way. And I think what tends to happen is many people eventually do something or fall back on a default type of a method, which they don't realize they've done. In the work I do, I end up supporting them to help them identify what they did, how they did it, and what did it do for them so that when they're in that fork in the road again, they could make that decision, but this time make it more conscious, not by accident. Make it more subconscious, not by happenstance, not by accident, basically. So that's the tough position in my place, which is where that emotion to finally see someone make those connections. This is what I gravitate to hear a story such as yours, where you're very well able to articulate and it comes across, which I hope is inspiring, and that's the strategy there to learn from. But go ahead.
Yeah, there was a guy that I knew in the I was never in the military, but I knew a man that was in the military. And he said something like this to me one time. He said, you always fall back to the level of your.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing. When
That's
you're in
interesting.
crisis mode, his whole point was like, if you're in
Yeah.
combat, the
Yeah.
reason why they drill you so
Yes.
much in what you do is because the muscle memory is going to kick in and you're going to survive depending, obviously it's combat, right? But you are more likely to survive
Mhm.
if you have done your drills and then you'll fall back to the basic level of your training, right? Because your brain goes into survival mode. And that's a thing for everybody. Here's the thing. If we're not training ourselves to be better people or to be resilient people,
Hmm.
then we will fall back to the basic level of our training. And if the basic level of our training is despair, then we're going to fall into despair. We're going to live there. We're going to wallow. We're going to get stuck. And then we're going to blame the world for everything that has happened to us and say, it was my circumstances' fault. It was this thing. It was that thing. This thing happened over here. That's why I'm stuck. It's like, no, that's not why you're stuck. You're stuck because you chose not to gain new training. That's why you're stuck.
And it reminds me of the whole growth mindset concept, where the whole Carol Dweck, with the studies that she's gone, you can have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset and be open to learning and recognizing I've made mistakes and learning from them and moving on. Or something happens, crap happens to me, but it's how I perceive and how I adjust my thinking
Correct.
and how resilient I can be based on what I've been. Said it well with the people in the military, what their training has enabled them to fall back on, which is really the be all and end all, because that's how to survive. So how did you
Right.
stay present for your family while carrying so much internal weight? I'm curious about that. As a family guy myself, what what do you attribute that? Like, how did that,
You have to learn
you
how
know,
to embrace discomfort.
there you go.
Once again, we seek out safety and comfort. I didn't have either one. So I had to become comfortable in danger. And I had to, which is comfortable in danger, right? And here's what's weird: seek safety in discomfort. Okay. It's this weird inverse thing that happens. Why? Because depending on who you are, if you have littles, okay,
I like that.
call them littles, right? I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
four.
yeah, yeah. That's great.
And the thing is that you can choose to sit in despair, but then what you're teaching them, because your job is to train them, they will fall back to that basic level of training. They will learn to despair because they never saw you rise. So then you have to decide if you're going to sit and wallow or if you're going to rise. And here's the thing: it's better if you show them that you don't know what you're doing.
Well,
What do you mean?
you're being honest about the obvious, the confusion, I'm not sure, compared to the denial and the avoidance of the emotion and trying to be brave, right?
Right. Exactly. Because what'll happen is, it doesn't matter which parent you are. Okay. It's like, I can't, everything's fine, kids, and the house is burning. It's like that meme with that dog sitting at like, the house is on fire and he's got a coffee mug. Like, this is fine. It's like, no. Okay. If you don't know, tell your kids, I don't know. If you aren't sure, tell your kids, I'm unsure. And they're going to go, what do you do when you're unsure? Because, man, if you're the person that's my entire world and you know
Yes,
everything,
yes.
right? Which we don't know everything as parents, but from the kid's perspective, like, you know everything, right? Then it's like, hey, actually, I don't. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I don't know what's going to happen next. But what I do know is that if we put our trust in God and we put our trust in each other and we rally around each other, we'll figure it out together.
That's it. I was waiting for that to figure it out. I
We'll figure it
believe
out together. But how do we know if it's the right answer? We're
those are
not going to
those
know.
what if questions. Yes, those the
Yeah.
kids have those questions. So what belief about yourself completely changed because of what you experienced, what you survived,
Belief about myself changed.
because I was going to ask you about what you were like before 2017 or 2012, what kind of person you were before then, and what kind of person you turned into after. You tell me. You
I,
have whichever you gravitate to.
yeah, I was going to write a book one time called Think You're Invincible. And then I was going to change the title to Assume That You're Stupid.
Mm.
Like kind of the evolution of things, right? And the title now, I have no idea. I haven't written it yet. But so here's the thing: where my thinking really changed was actually in '08.
Okay,
Okay.
even
I've had
sooner.
a lot of pivot points.
No, of course. We
And
won't.
so
Yeah.
'08 informed 12, 17, 20. Okay. 22, 25, almost done. Okay. That informed so many things. So here's what happened. Like I mentioned earlier, I used to be a piano tuner. And so I walked into this school. And the reason why I'm mentioning this story is because in your question of like, how did it change? The pivot point happened then. And what 2017 did was reinforce this even stronger. It actually solidified it. solidified it. Before it was like this amorphous thought process. And 2017 really made it solid like, hey, I just got to keep going.
Right.
See what I mean?
Yes.
And
So
what's
that,
funny is because that to '08, and this will make sense in a second, get back up no matter what. This will make sense. Really solidified in that moment, looking at the computer and being like, what am I going to do? I'm going to get back up no matter what. Because I'd already done it. Here's what happened. So I was at a school in Brownsville, Texas. It was a Catholic school. And they had a piano that was resting on a bench and some textbooks. And it was a little tiny piano. They're called spinets. They're probably about 450 pounds ish, something like that. 300 pounds, 300 to 450, something like that. 250 to 350, that one in particular. It's a ball and spinet. And so I see one good leg, and there was a leg that was split down the middle. And I was like, well, I can replace these. That's what I do. And I didn't have my special dolly. Where you told them. And so I squat down and I reach around to screw in the good leg, and I feel the piano kind of start
I
to
was waiting for that.
shimmy a little
Yep.
bit. Yeah. Well, then it falls backwards, and I catch it, and I get about this high off the ground. That's 6, 7, 8 inches, and my left hip goes pop. I drop the piano. I collapse. Right at that moment, my secretary calls me, and she says, "Hey, I want it," literally like seconds later. "Hey, just calling to see if you I had some questions about these invoices." I said, "Diana, I need you to do me a favor." "Yeah, what's up?" "I need you to call the school and tell them that I'm on the ground. I can't move. I'm in a lot of pain." "What happened? What happened?" "Piano fell on me." "Do I call an ambulance?" "No, I can't afford one." "Health insurance?" I'm like, "I can't afford one. Just no, just call the school, tell them I'm there." Okay. So one of those jawbone Bluetooth earpieces, old school jawbones. And so then right after that, my mom calls me. It's so funny. It's like everyone got the cosmic bat signal or whatever you want to call it, right? So my mom calls me and she goes, "Hey son, how you doing?" I said, "Mom, I need you to call the school and I need you to tell them that I'm on the floor and I can't move." And she goes to her secretary. She's like, "Hey, Miss Pat, can you, what's the school's name?" Told her the name. "Hey, Miss Pat, can you please call the school?" So then I'm lying there and I'm starting to go into shock. My body's starting to shiver. Okay. And they walk in. "What happened?" I'm like, "It fell. I can't move." They're like, "Okay, well, here, do we call an ambulance?" I'm like, "No, I already." Then my mom calls my wife. My wife's like, "Oh my gosh." My wife calls my dad. My mom calls my dad. Everybody's calling each other. And so they began the hour and 20-minute trek to the school. So I'm lying there for about an hour and a half. Now, there was this wonderful nun. I don't remember her name, but she gave me her cardigan to try and keep me warm. And I thought, maybe this isn't so bad, right? So I tried to sit in the chair and I started feeling the world start to kind of go a little lopsided. And I'm like, if
Yeah.
I'm going to pass out, I'm going to do it down there and not up here. So got on the ground and laid there. When my dad showed up, it was a choice of my dad's truck or my car. My car was lower, but this strapping dude walks in. You can tell dude's buff, right? And so they got an office chair. So he picks me up and they set me in the office chair. And the pain, that was like, I can't even describe the pain to you. It was so bad. That's why, like, this accident that I had, I'm like, oh, it hurts a lot, but not like that. So that's like my scale of 1 to 10. That was the 100. So,
Gosh.
so anyway, so every bump, every jolt, every little pothole, every little turn, I mean, just sent shockwaves of pain through my body. And then I sat in a kitchen for a week while my wife went out to work. And I just sat there thinking, like, what am I going to do with my life? And then we started looking at bills, and it was a really rough thing, right? And that's where the mindset shifted from I'm invincible to, oh, I can get hurt, but I can't afford to stay down. Now, I did not consciously come up with get back up no matter what in that moment, but that laid the foundation and the seeds for that when 2017 occurred and I had looked at 12, all these other things, I had realized that I had chosen consistently to get up and that needed to be a rule that I lived by. And so now it was get back up no matter what.
So do you believe then, I'm curious, that the pain that you experienced, just overall, not just in that moment, but the pain you experienced was necessary for you to become who you are now? Or could you have gotten here another way with a
That's a
different
good
path?
question.
Yeah, that's what came to my mind just now. We all go through moments. I'm going to give you a moment to think. We all go through moments and experiences where we become resilient, we toughen up, we grow, we have cuts, scrapes, and bruises. Our muscles get stronger, our mental fortitude becomes stronger, and then we are who we are now. And that's what your kids are going to learn and know about you now. So,
I will say it this way: the pain is necessary. So there's a book by a man named Joseph Campbell called "The Hero with a Thousand Faces." Are you familiar with this book? So it's actually a treatise on the hero's journey. Now there's this movie called Star Wars. Okay,
hmm,
which I don't know if you can see my background or not, but a little bit of a fan.
I'm
And I
with you on
mentioned
Star
Baby
Wars, so
Yoda.
don't worry. I was
Okay.
going to get to Luke later, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here we
I
go.
have a
Perfect
question for
example.
that about that.
So here with a thousand faces, Joseph Campbell noticed that all these archetypes in nearly every culture, they all have this story, and there's actually this like story arc that everyone follows. What's really interesting is people whose lives have touched others have all also gone through this overarching story arc. It's crazy. And what's so beautiful about it, what's so amazing about it too, is there's this predictable pattern, okay, that you can actually go through and see. And it's that pattern that as you look at how someone's life follows that, the pain that they have, there's this part where it's called death. It's basically the bottom of the barrel. Like you're at rock bottom, excuse me. Okay. And you have the choice. And here's what's really interesting. The villain's journey starts at rock bottom, as does the hero's.
Hmm.
Okay. The villain's journey is one where they have gone to rock bottom and then they decide, screw it. I'm done with all of it. And then they become the destructive force in the lives of the heroes later on. Okay. Everyone hits rock bottom. Everyone has a choice. So what Luke does, okay,
Yes.
is Luke comes back and he says what? So he looks at Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling this for people. Okay. Okay.
I don't think
And so
so.
he's like, Aunt Beru, Uncle Owen, right? He shows up and they are burnt to a crisp. They're dead. And so now he has what's called an inciting incident where he has to decide, what am I going to do? So he decides I'm going to go fight this evil empire. But then he winds up at the Death Star, and what happens to his beloved mentor? Okay. He turns into laundry.
And he becomes an
One with the Force.
inspiration. Yes, the Force.
Yes.
Yeah. That's,
Exactly. And then what happens? And then Luke has this epic battle and victory. And then the cycle starts all over again. Happened in Empire Strikes Back, happened in Return of the Jedi.
yes.
I was telling somebody about this recently where, he's in the throne room with the Emperor, and I can feel your anger. Do it. Strike me down with it. Right? Good old,
Yes.
was it? Yeah, forgot the guy's name. But anyway, the actor. Anyway, so that's what's funny about that is that people don't realize that, yes, the pain is necessary. It's something that you have to go through. If you're going to go through pain with purpose.
Well, you're basically going back to embracing it, however you put it earlier.
Find peace in the pieces.
Pieces
Embrace,
and
like,
pieces,
yeah,
embrace.
exactly.
I call it accept, but yes, I don't mean like I like it. I accept,
correct.
acknowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have to be happy about
Yeah,
it.
nobody's happy about it. But
Right. I don't have to be happy about it.
You can't stay in denial. The hardest thing I find is moving someone from denial to the next stage, of anger and depression or bargaining until they finally reach that acceptance. That's the reference I make yeah. Wow. So just to bring this back home, the dark side that Luke had to confront, what was it like for you facing your dark side? And then what compelled you to not go dark? And I work with a lot of kids and they go very negative very quickly. Oh, we lost. We're losing 4-0. It's the first minute of the soccer game. We're going to lose. And they're negative. It's the first inning. We give up 9 runs. It's the first inning. So,
Yeah.
and the reframe, how did you reframe? If I bring it back to, see, people go through and use methods that are kind of CBT methods or ACT or DBT, all the acronyms, all the behavioral, all the psychology terms. They don't do it consciously sometimes. They do it out of desperation, out of frustration, out of fear. And that compels them. Sometimes they don't learn from that. But those that do make every effort to implement it again and again as they need to, because now they have had a template to work from. So for you, what was that? You're facing the dark side and you can stay or you can go up and go down.
I had a staff member years ago that used to work for me, and he said, "Dude, people have really screwed you over,
Mm,
and you still love them.
mm.
Why?" He's like, "If anybody has a reason to be angry, bitter, hateful, it's like you have every reason to do that.
But where do I go from there? Right? You're saying, if I'm going to be angry and hateful, then who am I
But
going to
what
be?
happens next? We all
What?
experience it.
Yes, that's yeah.
The thing that you have to decide in that moment is, can you live with who you will be afterward? And can other people live with who you will be afterward?" But here's the thing: when someone, I'm not a clinician, so this is my strict opinion. But in my opinion, when somebody is narcissistic in nature, okay, and they choose the dark side,
I got you now.
they choose the dark side because they look at it and say, now I have power, which comes from wounding, right? And actually, back to Star Wars, Anakin Skywalker, you turned her against me. Okay. And you've done that yourself, Anakin, right? Like, sorry if I'm spoiling this for people. Great movies. You should go and watch them.
It,
Anyway, but it really is an analog for life because that's a moment where it's like, okay, how much of the things that I'm going through are because I made bad choices that led me into the
so you're
circumstances
talking about taking responsibility.
exactly
Exactly.
that are
Yes.
now bringing me to this place where it's like, okay, now granted, losing a child, business partner, all that kind of stuff. But you know what? Even there, I think it was Maya Angelou that said, when people show you who they are, believe them. And the business partner showed me who he was, but it just didn't click for me. But even then, I don't allow the thing that also that is the excuse that I make for things
Hmm.
that I do clearly miss sometimes.
Hmm.
See, I guess that's the decision is it's taking responsibility for
Yes.
yourself and saying, I
Yes.
am going to decide, can I live with myself? And the narcissist will say, yes, I can live with myself because now I have power. But if somebody builds their life on love, love for people, love for humanity, love for each other, okay? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. What a concept, okay? If people have that kind of love, I couldn't live with myself if I allowed hate to consume me. So no matter what, even like the former business partner that did horrible things, I've forgiven him. This is going to sound crazy. I love him in a way. I wish the best for him. I hope that he finds whatever peace it is that he's trying to seek out in his destructive behaviors and that he pivots and turns his life towards something so much better. Maybe he already has. I don't know. We haven't talked in God knows how long, but it is the personal choice to say, I get to choose who I'm going to be. And when you face the darkness, you can say, screw them all. I'm just going to hate. Go ahead, do that. And then you'll find yourself consumed later on.
And where do you go from there? Exactly.
You'll find yourself consumed later on. And then the people that you are trying to eventually love, or the people that you might even fall in love with, or maybe even there's a romantic relationship, for example, that someone is presented with, that hatred will consume them so much that it will consume that other person. And that other person will be repelled completely and say, I can't, because the hate and the love are not compatible forces. They don't blend, they repel each other. But what the difference is when anger consumes, it consumes in total darkness and causes destruction.
Right.
When love consumes, it completely overtakes anger if someone lets themselves be overtaken by love, and it repairs and rebuilds.
Yes. Well put.
But it's always the choice of the individual. And I decided in the darkest moments not to be angry, not to be bitter, not to be hateful, not to have hatred. Why? What would have been the point? And there are people out there that would be like, well, I hate God. I'm like, well, you can. One, if you don't believe God is real, you can't hate somebody that's not real, but that's
Yes.
a separate
Go
thing
ahead.
altogether.
Yes.
But aside from that, if you're operating in hatred for whatever, I hate them because I was abused as a child, or I hate them because I was this antagonized situation. I hate because of insert reason here. Go ahead. And then you reap what you sow. Resiliency comes from love, not hate.
Exactly. No, well put. Stephen, I've got to tell you, this has been a wonderful experience hearing your story. It is just a pleasure. I look forward to, if we have an opportunity down the road, to explore some other pivot point moments that might have impacted your life, to have continued again. I want to mention that this has been something that I know our listeners are going to be really inspired by and motivated to take a closer look at themselves. And I want to thank you very much for spending time with us here on Pivot Point Strategy for Change. I'm Nik Michael. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Pleasure.
Enjoy. Have a great evening. I look forward to our conversation again.
Me too.